You've never heard of the most popular player in women's tennis. The AUS Open didn't realize how many fans she had. Scheduling is a tricky business for tournament organizers given the competing demands of international broadcasters keen to showcase the best in prime time for their markets. But the Australian Open struck a snafu on Monday with their decision to schedule trailblazing Filipino Alexandra Ila on Court 6, which is Melbourne Park's designated party court. The most recent census said there were 58,935 people born in the Philippines living in Melbourne, and it felt like every single one of them was packed around the court's perimeter, or squeezed into the narrow pathway surrounding it. Ila may be the biggest tennis talent Australians have never heard of, but the tennis world is well aware of her drawing power. And AO officials should have known this. Just last week, respected Australian tennis administrator Peter Johnston told foxsports.com.au that when she was playing a tournament in Hong Kong that he is the tournament director for, there were massive entry queues at the Victoria Park precinct. She is a huge draw and a breakout star. When she was playing in Hong Kong in October, we had queues of more than 100 meters long from local Filipinos want to see her. Johnston, who served as the AO deputy tournament director earlier this century, said. The queues were even bigger at Melbourne Park as fans clamored to get a glimpse of the world number 49, who upset six-time major star Iga Swiatek in the Miami Open last year. Such was the demand. Fans were told not to even bother, with extra security around a court carrying an electric atmosphere throughout her clash with Alicia Parks. They were not exactly your typical tennis fans either, madly cheering when Parks produced an unforced error in the very first game of the match, which is against the unwritten rules of tennis fandom. Ila, an aggressive shotmaker, is not quite the finished product and can be erratic, but it is indisputable she sits among the world's biggest stars when it comes to metrics. The Australian Open's own YouTube account demonstrates this, with their posting of Ila's pre-tournament press conference drawing significantly more views than that of two-time champion Aryna Sabalenka, a staggering 171,000 to 8,000. So strong is her profile at home, the WTA has scheduled a tournament in Manila later this month to capitalize on her profile, one she will now be likely to feature in. The fact it was scheduled during the second week of the Open suggests tournament organizers weren't expecting her to make a deep Grand Slam run. Genuinely wondering if Alex Ila is already the most popular player in women's tennis right now. U.S. tennis writer Ben Rothenborg tweeted, "It would be hard to argue any player had a more passionate fan base on site on Monday, certainly. Despite losing 0-6-6 to 3-6-2, Ila spent a solid 10 to 15 minutes post-match signing autographs for her fans. It wasn't printed in bold on the main draw posters. It wasn't stitched across giant banners hanging from Rod Laver Arena. The commentators hadn't rehearsed her biography, and the broadcasters hadn't prepared slow-motion montages set to emotional music. Yet, on a warm Melbourne morning, as she walked through the players' tunnel, a sound rose that surprised everyone, including herself. It was not the roar reserved for champions. It was something warmer, broader, more personal. It was love. Her name was Mara Ionescu, and you've probably never heard of her. 1. The invisible favorite. Mara was not seeded. She wasn't ranked in the top 10, or even the top 50. She didn't dominate headlines or social media debates. Her trophies, if you counted them honestly, would barely fill a shelf. But she had something rarer than titles, memory. Fans remembered her because she stayed after losses to sign autographs until security had to intervene. Because she answered questions thoughtfully, even when she'd just played 3 hours in the heat and lost in a tiebreak. Because she smiled at ball kids and learned their names. Because when she won, she celebrated with disbelief rather than entitlement. In a sport obsessed with dominance, Mara specialized in humanity. 2. A career built in the margins. Mara's career unfolded mostly on courts that didn't make television. Qualifiers. Outer courts. Early rounds played at odd hours. She traveled without an entourage, booked her own flights, and carried her own bags. She was the player fans discovered accidentally. A family wandering toward a food stall would pause to watch her grind through a 3-set match. A junior player would stop mid-warm-up, mesmerized by her footwork. Someone scrolling their phone would look up and stay. She lost often, but she fought always. And slowly, quietly, people began to remember her. 3. Melbourne, Day 1. On the first day of the Australian Open, Mara was scheduled on Court 13. Court 13 is where expectations go to dissipate. Yet by the time she stepped onto the court, something felt wrong. Or rather, unexpectedly right. The stands were full. Not just dotted with spectators killing time, but packed with people wearing hand-painted signs. Let's go, Mara. Fight like always. We believe. The line judges exchanged glances. The umpire adjusted her headset. Even Mara hesitated, racket dangling at her side. She waved, awkwardly, and the crowd responded like she had just won a final. Somewhere inside the tournament offices, someone asked, "Who is playing on court 13? 4. Popularity without permission. What the Australian Open hadn't realized was that popularity doesn't always announce itself. Mara had fans in Australia because she played there every year, even when she had to qualify. She stayed in budget hotels and ate at the same cafe, year after year. The staff remembered her. So did the locals. She had fans in Japan because she bowed to the crowd after every match. Fans in South America because she learned Spanish just well enough to thank them properly. Fans in Eastern Europe because she never forgot where she came from. She had fans because she was accessible in a world increasingly distant. No brand strategist had planned this. No algorithm had predicted it. It happened the old-fashioned way, one person at a time. 5. The match that changed nothing and everything. Mara won that first-round match in 3 sets, saving match points and collapsing to the court when it ended. The crowd stood. Not politely. Not briefly. They stood like witnesses. Social media noticed. Clips spread. Commentators scrambled. An incredible atmosphere for an unseeded player. One said, puzzled. By the 3rd round, Mara was moved to a larger court. By the 4th, a stadium. Each time, the crowd followed. Each time, the noise grew louder. She didn't win the tournament. She didn't even make the final. But when she lost in the quarterfinals, something strange happened. The applause lasted longer than for the champion's entrance the next day. 6. The kind of popularity you can't fake. After her loss, journalists finally lined up. "Why do you think fans connect with you?" one asked. Mara paused. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I think they see themselves. I struggle. I doubt. I keep going." That answer didn't trend. It didn't go viral. But it stayed. Because in an era of curated perfection, Mara represented effort without guarantee. She showed up without promising victory. She played not to be inevitable, but to be present. And people recognized themselves in that.